What if I told you that thinking about death for just 5 minutes a day could make you more alive than you've ever been? Today, I'm revealing the ancient Stoic practice that Steve Jobs, Marcus Aurelius, and countless successful people have used to cut through life's noise and focus on what truly matters. It's called Memento Mori, remember you will die, and it's about to transform how you spend every moment you have left. Before I show you how to use death as your greatest teacher, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Why? Because what I'm about to share isn't morbid or depressing. It's the most life-affirming practice you'll ever learn. This is episode 6 of Be Stoic Every Day. And if you want to stop wasting time and start living fully, you need this wisdom. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Daily Stoic Insights. I'm your host, and today we're talking about the practice that makes everything else we've covered more urgent, more meaningful, and more transformative. The Stoics had a saying, Memento Mori, remember you will die. Not to be morbid, but to be motivated. Not to be depressed, but to be decisive. Not to give up on life, but to grab hold of it with both hands. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote about death almost daily in his personal journal. Not because he was suicidal or depressed, but because remembering his mortality helped him focus on what truly mattered. Steve Jobs, in his famous Stanford commencement speech, said, "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart." Today, I'm going to show you how to use this ancient wisdom to cut through the noise of modern life and focus on what actually matters. Here's what I'm going to give you today. First, the exact daily practice that Marcus Aurelius used to maintain perspective. Second, 3 specific ways to use mortality awareness to make better decisions. And third, a simple evening ritual that will make you grateful for every day you have. Plus, I've got a 30-day challenge that will change how you see time forever. Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. When most people here think about death, they imagine something dark and depressing. But that's not what Memento Mori is about. Memento Mori isn't about being obsessed with death. It's about being obsessed with life. When you truly understand that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. The psychology of mortality awareness. Psychologists have studied what they call mortality salience, the awareness of death, and found something remarkable. When people are reminded of their mortality in a healthy way, they make decisions based on their values, not social pressure. Spend more time with people they love. Pursue meaningful goals instead of trivial ones. Feel more grateful for what they have. Worry less about small problems. Take more meaningful risks. This isn't theory. This is proven science. Death awareness, when practiced correctly, makes you more alive. Practice number 1, the daily death meditation. Every morning, spend 5 minutes contemplating your mortality. Not in a fearful way, but in a clarifying way. Here's the exact process. Minutes 1 to 2. Remind yourself that this day could be your last. Not because something bad will happen, but because life is uncertain and death is certain. Minutes 3 to 4. Ask yourself, if I knew I only had 1 year to live, what would I do differently today? Then ask, if I knew I only had 1 month to live, what would I do differently? Then, if I knew I only had 1 week to live? Minute 5. Set your intention for the day based on these reflections. What matters most? What can you let go of? How do you want to spend this precious day? This isn't about becoming morbid. It's about becoming clear. When you remember that your time is limited, you naturally prioritize what's truly important. Practice number 2, the deathbed test. Whenever you're facing a decision, big or small, apply the deathbed test. Imagine yourself at the end of your life, looking back on this moment. What would you want to have chosen? Should you have that difficult conversation or avoid it? Should you take that risk or play it safe? Should you spend time with family or work late again? Should you pursue your passion or stick with security? The deathbed perspective cuts through all the noise and reveals what actually matters. You'll never regret being kind, being brave, being authentic, or being loving. You will regret playing small, avoiding risks, and wasting time on things that don't matter. Real-world application. Let me give you a personal example. Last year, I was offered an opportunity to speak at a major conference, but it would require significant preparation time and travel. My first instinct was to decline. I was busy, it was inconvenient, and I wasn't sure I was ready. Then I applied the deathbed test. At the end of my life, would I regret taking this opportunity to share ideas that could help people? Or would I regret playing it safe and staying in my comfort zone? The answer was obvious. I took the opportunity, and it led to connections and experiences that changed my life. The deathbed test helped me see past my immediate fears to what I would actually value in the long run. Practice number 3, the legacy question. Once a week, ask yourself, what legacy am I creating with my daily choices? Not your grand legacy, your daily legacy. How will people remember the way you treated them today? What impact are your words and actions having? This isn't about being perfect or putting pressure on yourself. It's about being intentional. When you remember that every interaction might be someone's last memory of you, you naturally show up with more kindness, patience, and presence. The gratitude connection. Here's something beautiful about Memento Mori. It makes you incredibly grateful. When you truly understand that nothing lasts forever, not your health, not your relationships, not your opportunities, you stop taking them for granted. The Stoics understood that the antidote to taking life for granted is remembering that it's temporary. When you know something won't last forever, you appreciate it more fully while you have it. Advanced practice, the loved one's meditation. Once a month, spend 10 minutes thinking about the people you love most. Imagine that you only had one more conversation with each of them. What would you want to say? What would you want them to know? Then, and this is crucial, find ways to express those things while you still can. Don't wait for a crisis to tell people you love them, appreciate them, or are grateful for them. This practice has led me to have some of the most meaningful conversations of my life. It's helped me resolve conflicts, express gratitude, and deepen relationships. All because I stopped assuming I'd have unlimited time to say what matters. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, this sounds heavy. Won't thinking about death make me anxious or depressed? That's a natural concern, and I'm about to address it directly. Plus, I'm going to share the specific way to practice this that actually reduces anxiety rather than increasing it. And yes, that 30-day challenge is coming up. Let's address the biggest concern people have about Memento Mori. Won't this make me anxious or depressed? The answer is, it depends on how you practice it. Unhealthy death awareness. Obsessing over when or how you'll die. Using mortality to justify reckless behavior. Becoming paralyzed by the uncertainty of life. Focusing on death itself rather than how to live. Healthy death awareness. Using mortality to clarify your values. Letting death awareness motivate better choices. Finding peace with life's uncertainty. Focusing on how to live fully while you can. The key is to use death as a teacher, not a tormentor. Death isn't the enemy. Wasted life is the enemy. The anxiety antidote. If thinking about mortality makes you anxious, try this reframe. Instead of I'm going to die someday, think I'm alive right now. Instead of life is short, think life is precious. The goal isn't to become comfortable with death. It's to become uncomfortable with wasting life. Scientific benefits. Research shows that healthy mortality awareness actually reduces anxiety about death over time. When you regularly contemplate mortality in a structured way, you develop what psychologists call death acceptance, a peaceful relationship with life's ultimate uncertainty. People who practice Memento Mori report less fear of death over time, more appreciation for daily experiences, better decision-making under pressure, stronger relationships and deeper conversations, greater sense of meaning and purpose. The evening practice, gratitude for today. Every evening, spend 5 minutes on this reflection. Minute 1, I'm grateful I lived through today. What made today worth living? Minutes 2 to 3, what did I do today that I'm proud of? How did I make the most of this day? Minutes 4 to 5, if this had been my last day, what would I want people to remember about how I lived it? This evening practice helps you end each day with gratitude and intention. rather than regret or anxiety about tomorrow. Practical applications. In relationships. When you remember that every conversation could be your last with someone, you naturally become more present, more patient, and more loving. In work. When you remember that your career is temporary, you focus on meaningful contribution rather than just climbing ladders. In conflicts. When you remember that life is short, you stop wasting time on petty arguments and focus on resolution and understanding. In opportunities. When you remember that chances don't last forever, you become more willing to take meaningful risks. Before I give you that 30-day challenge, let me share the most powerful application of Memento Mori, one that most people never think about, but that can transform your entire approach to living. I'm also going to give you a simple phrase you can use anytime you need instant perspective. The most powerful application of Memento Mori isn't thinking about your own death. It's thinking about the death of your current self. Every day, some version of you dies. The you from yesterday is gone forever. The you from last year exists only in memory. You're constantly dying and being reborn as new experiences shape you. This perspective is incredibly liberating. It means your past mistakes don't define you. That person is already dead. Your current limitations aren't permanent. You can die to them and be reborn. Your identity is fluid. You can choose who to become next. Every day is a chance to start fresh. The Phoenix Practice. Once a week, ask yourself, what version of myself am I ready to let die? What version am I ready to be born as? Maybe you're ready to let the anxious version of yourself die and be reborn as someone more confident. Maybe you're ready to let the people-pleasing version die and be reborn as someone more authentic. This isn't about rejecting who you are, it's about consciously evolving into who you want to become. The magic phrase. When you need instant perspective on any situation, use this phrase. In 100 years, none of this will matter, but how I respond right now shapes who I become. This phrase helps you zoom out from immediate stress, while zooming in on character development. Here's what happens when you master Memento Mori. You stop sleepwalking through life. You stop postponing important conversations, meaningful risks, and authentic choices. You stop taking your health, your relationships, and your opportunities for granted. You become more alive because you remember you're mortal. You become more grateful because you remember nothing lasts forever. You become more courageous because you remember that the biggest risk is not living fully. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." Memento Mori ensures you begin to live, really live, every single day. The paradox is beautiful. By remembering death, you discover life. By accepting mortality, you find meaning. By embracing impermanence, you learn to love what's temporary. Here's your 30-day Memento Mori challenge. Days 1 to 10. Practice the daily death meditation every morning. 5 minutes contemplating mortality and setting intentions based on that awareness. Days 11 to 20. Add the deathbed test to your decision-making. Before any significant choice, ask what you'd want to have chosen when looking back from the end of your life. Days 21 to 30. Add the evening gratitude practice. End each day reflecting on what made it worth living and how you'd want to be remembered. Keep a simple journal tracking how mortality awareness affects your daily choices, what you become more grateful for, what you become less worried about, how your relationships and priorities shift. At the end of 30 days, you'll have concrete evidence of how Memento Mori transforms your approach to living. If you're ready to stop wasting time and start living fully, smash that like button. You're not just supporting the channel, you're committing to making every day count. You're saying, I refuse to sleepwalk through the precious time I have. Comment below, with Memento Mori, I will make today count. And tell me one thing you're going to do differently, because you remember life is temporary. When you make a public commitment, you're more likely to follow through. Share this video with someone who's been postponing their dreams, avoiding difficult conversations, or taking their life for granted. Give them the gift of urgency. Remind them that time is the one thing we can never get back. Subscribe and hit that notification bell, because next week We're covering the power of voluntary hardship, how choosing discomfort makes you stronger than any comfort ever could. It's going to challenge everything you think about the good life. Remember, you are not guaranteed tomorrow. You are not promised next year. You have right now. And right now is enough to begin living the life you want to be remembered for. Until next time, stay stoic, stay grateful, and make every moment count.